Hendrickson. Don is from the Alternating Hemiplegia of Childhood Foundation, and we're going to talk a little bit about this very rare disease that afflicts under 1,000 children, I believe, and what his organization is doing to help children that are afflicted with this. Don, welcome to the studio, and welcome to Get Real with Ralph. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Jim, for this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I've been involved with you, 3 years now?
Yep.
3 years helping you out with your the big fundraiser coming up on the 17th. But right now we want to talk more about the disease and maybe kind of explain more in detail what this disease is all about.
The disease is a genetic neurological disorder that has symptoms of, it mimics stroke-like symptoms of dystonia, which is stiffness, and it can move from one side of the body to the other. It's very rare. 1 in a million is what we're told, and they
That's all right. It's all right.
So it affects 1 in a million. And from what I understand, and we've talked before, is that we're getting close to a cure for this, correct?
Yes. Well, every child that has been properly diagnosed with AHC were previously misdiagnosed either with seizure disorder or Todd's paralysis. Some have actually had seizure disorders, but the only way to know is with the DNA test.
Gotcha.
Then the cure that they're working on is a genetic cure where they're going to want to inject the correct DNA into the spine, and hopefully it will go to the place in the DNA strand, replacing the bad DNA.
Now, have they had some success with this treatment already in children, or have they done it as far as an experimentation with animals? How far have they come in using this DNA replacement therapy so far? It's
been used in mice to cure color blindness, and that would be the same theory they're going to use to try to cure alternating hemiplegia.
You know, we talked before about how it goes undetected or misdiagnosed.
That is,
my God. I mean, personally, because your daughter, the very lovely Danielle, she's just a beautiful, beautiful young woman, and she's afflicted with this disease, and she was misdiagnosed from almost day one, correct?
Yes, she was 8 years old when she was finally diagnosed, and before that, she was on narcotics like Tegretol and Depakote, which are pretty heavy. They're for seizure disorders. So she was being treated wrongly, and really they have no treatments. They can treat symptoms, but not the specific disorder.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your journey and how you got here with this. So your daughter first started showing symptoms, and you said she was misdiagnosed. Take us through that. What type of symptoms did she start off with, and what was that journey like? How many different misdiagnoses did you go through before you finally got the correct one?
Yeah, it was when she was about half-year old, she'd start having her eyes go crossed, limbs go stiff on her, and she'd be just unresponsive pretty much for several hours. Sleep, rest, kind of put the symptoms at bay, and she could function normally again. Sometimes the seizures or the episodes would go on for minutes, hours, or days.
My goodness.
And then even after she comes out of sleep, she could slip right back into one fairly quickly or be okay for a while.
So I can't imagine the fear that must have went through you and your wife's hearts as you were dealing with this. The first time you thought you had a diagnosis, what was the first diagnosis that they gave that was incorrect?
Seizure disorder.
Okay, and you said that as a result, they had her on some heavy narcotics to try and stave off the seizures. What led to finally coming up with the correct diagnosis?
There was a doctor who was in Milwaukee at Children's, and the wife took her up there for another neurological visit, and he started asking her some questions. The first question was, does she have her eyes crossed? And then the other one was, does she get stiffness? And then the next one was, does she come out of it after she sleeps? And that's when the wife told him, you know something, what is it? And that was before DNA testing, about 3 years ago, we had her at the Mayo, and they did the DNA sequencing, which confirmed what we'd been told for about 15 years.
How old was your daughter when you finally got the proper diagnosis?
8.
8. So from 1 until 8, you had different diagnoses, different theories as to what was going on. Nothing was working. I imagine it had to be a very difficult time for you and your wife and your daughter in your lives trying to figure out what was wrong. Once the correct diagnosis came up, what was the course of action that they took at that time?
There's really not much. There is a class of drugs called calcium channel blockers. The first one wasn't available in the United States, a drug that's in Europe called flunarizine. Flunarizine is commonly used for migraine headaches, but it also works in this calcium as a calcium channel blocker.
Okay. Gotcha. So they used it. They used an off-label reason for using it, and did that help ease the symptoms at least?
We didn't see a lot of difference with flunarizine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But now she's on an American equivalent, and she seems to be responding. I mean, she still has her ups and downs episodes, but they aren't so severe and frequent as they used to be.
So how often does she have to endure these episodes now?
Oh, it could be between mild and severe. Could be once or twice a week.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So otherwise, when she's not enduring these episodes, your daughter pretty much is able to live a normal functioning life in between those.
Oh, she had a lot of developmental delays in both mental and physical. Additionally, at Mayo, they found that her cerebellum is shrinking. This doesn't necessarily mean it's of the disease because they all have slightly different side symptoms.
Right.
And it causes her the motor function. So she doesn't speak 100%.
Not 100%.
Yeah,
yes.
one or two syllables, and then it's kind of like make up the rest. We've learned to speak her talk, and she's learned ours as well.
That's a fantastic gift. Now, the AHCF is the organization that is going after this DNA-based cure. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they're saying that they believe that they'll be able to do clinical trials on humans in the near future. Is that what they're hoping?
Yes, they're hoping for that. They had to raise $600,000 to get this going. So in the spring, they had a man who generously said he would match anything up to $50,000 by the end of April. By the end of April, we'd raised $70,000. He doubled $70,000. Bless his heart.
Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic when you hear that there's good people in the world
Absolutely.
that are willing to put their hearts and souls and their financial resources into helping in situations such as this.
And if anybody wants to go online, they can donate and learn more about just AHCF.com.
Correct.
Yes.
Just,
Yep.
It's the Alternating Hemiplegia of Childhood Foundation, and you are part of this foundation now. So when you got to the point when you knew what it was your daughter had, then you came in contact with the AHCF people and got involved in their organization?
Yes.
And how long have they been working on a cure for this?
I think they've been at it since the mid-'90s. It's about 93, I believe.
Gotcha. And they've done a very good job. I look at their website of educating people on what the symptoms are of AHC, what the diagnostic criteria is, what the long-term effects are, and these are some of the things that we talked about, as well as what they're doing to treat it. So you're going to want to go online and check it out, the Alternating Hemiplegia of Childhood Foundation, and it's remarkable. I didn't know much about this until Jim brought it to my attention. I believe a couple of weeks back we started talking about it, and it's fascinating that they are as close as they are to getting somewhere with it.
And Don, I believe we were talking a couple of weeks ago. He said they're kind of teaming up with the Parkinson's.
Well, the incorrect or the defective DNA she shares with Parkinson's.
With Parkinson's, okay.
She has 2 defective genes. One of them is shared with Parkinson's.
Okay.
And long term, if a child is able to get this cure, and move on? Do they believe that the other damage is going to be permanent, or do they believe that the developmental problems can be overcome over time, or what's the prognosis for all of that?
The developmental delays will not be helped at all. Our daughter is 28 now, so she's not really a candidate. We're looking for these other families who are just coming into it. They need somebody young who hasn't had the damaging long-term effects.
So if they can get early detection, early treatment, and hopefully get this cure out there, then children who are affected with it in the future may not have the additional side effects that unfortunately your daughter endured, and it sounds like what you're trying to accomplish here.
Raise awareness. That's the main thing we're doing.
Yeah, so anything really gets done.